Hello, welcome. It's All for United, the men's channel. Don't switch over if you've just been on the women's channel and seen me there. I'm doing both. It appears to be what I do on a Friday currently. So nice to have you along for the ride. And what a ride it is. What a ride it is. This time last week, we were sat here looking at the Real Betis game and thinking to ourselves, looks like it's game over. And game over it was. But crikey, it was a bit of an interesting game to begin with. So we're going to kick off just with your opinions, basically. What did you think of the game in total? Because I thought the first half was quite manic, quite interesting, with the second half tailing off a little bit. But I don't know, maybe you guys saw it a little bit differently. So, Dan, what was your thoughts? You're muted, mate. Hang on, let me do this to you.
Me, that is, yeah. Yeah, so I thought we got exactly what we needed from the game, to be honest. It needed to just be a 1-0, 0-0, just something without any injuries, no disasters, no red cards, nothing like that. I think we pretty much got that, to be honest. It was a bit manic in the first half, and the second half turned into a bit of a training session, in my opinion. It was like half the team was just trying to get on the score sheet instead of playing as a team. But no, I was just happy that it all went smoothly, to be honest. It wasn't the best game to watch. I thought everybody me and Stu spoke about it last time, actually, of what Ten Hag would do. And he pretty much did what we expected. Maguire in, Malacia in, still a strong team. I saw calls before the game for certain changes. Like I mentioned Kobe Minu maybe getting some minutes, but not starting. And I just thought I found it quite funny the way some people had reacted to the lineup as if it was unexpected to what he's done this season, in terms of he seems to just go strong every game. But they was making out as if any trip away from home in Europe's an easy game and you can just make 5 changes and it will be absolutely fine. And I personally think he got it spot on again. And I thought the performance was good. I actually thought we'd run out maybe on the wrong end of a result, but to get the result as well, I don't think anything went wrong.
No, I'd struggle to disagree with that. Stu?
Yeah, I thought we'd be on the wrong end of a 1-0 or a 2-1. But what I didn't mention in the previous show was it's a 25-minute game, the second leg of a semi-final. Certainly when, or any kind of two-legged game, certainly when you're 4-1 down, it's a 25, maybe a 30-minute game. And as the opposition, if you're behind and you don't score within that time period, the game's up. It's a done deal. And that's pretty much how it opened out. Once they hadn't scored from 25, 30 minutes in, then they completely lost belief. And as Dan said, the second half was pretty much a training session. Look, the game for me, did I rush back to watch it? Not particularly. Was I enthralled by it? Not particularly, because I kind of knew what to expect. Because we've seen it all before. And people who watch this channel and all the contributors of this channel really know football. They know their football. And, if you were to talk to them privately, that's why I've got no compunction saying, we could easily lose 1-0, 2-0, and it makes no difference. And Ten Hag wouldn't have been bothered, really. He'd have come out publicly and said he would be. But actually, in the confines of your dressing room, your changing room, you're okay about it, as long as we make it through. And so for me, I kind of thought Betis got what they deserved. They had the chances. But Pellegrini, at the end of that game, when he's reviewing the game over the 2 legs, he'll be saying the first half of Old Trafford is where the game slipped away from us. That's where it all went away. And he can identify that. And we could identify that's where we got off the hook. And then you just move from there, don't you, really? And we did. Dan's right. I thought Ten Hag got it right. I've seen people say professional display of football. I think it's right to an extent, and we live to fight another day, don't we? And Sevilla is going to be no pushover. It's a difficult task, Sevilla. And I saw people in the group chat and on Twitter, we need to avoid X, Y, and Z. I've never been into that. I'll say, here we got, great, put it to bed now. We've got Fulham on Saturday. Then finally, some of the players got a break. And that's what's more important right now. And then when we come back from the international break or international pain in the arse, whatever you want to call it, because I don't think actually we're not actually playing any meaningful matches, are we? Or are we? Are ours just friendlies, John?
Well, you mean the international break?
Yeah, are we are just friendlies?
No. We don't have any. We don't have a league game until 2nd of April. Now.
Yeah, that's right. So either way, some of the players. I mean, I've seen Potter come out today, and Mason Mount isn't going. You know, he's not going. You know, he's supposedly injured. So I'm hoping you'll see some injuries over the coming days. That means they can't go to international duty and they can get off to Dubai. So I tend to agree with Dan. I think, as I say, me and Dan had a conversation about it the other day, and I think we both came down on the same side of the coin on it. And all in all,
sorry, the game on Thursday against Italy as a Euro 2024 qualifier.
Oh, right, well, I'll just.
So,
I'll throw that one out.
If we can't qualify for these Euros, then we've got problems, don't we? So, but there you go. So it's just one of those. So I was really pleased that we're through, but I'm more enthralled for the break. If I'm being brutally honest with you, I think players need a break, and I think fans need a break as well. It's tough on fans as well, always playing every 3 days. So.
There we go, John. I was watching the game yesterday, and literally my only thoughts were, please don't ruin what's been quite a nice day so far. And that was pretty much.
It was your birthday, wasn't it? Happy birthday for yesterday.
Yeah, happy birthday for yesterday, Barry. Yes.
Trying to get away from saying
and also shares it with Zayden as well, Stu.
It was, yeah. But to be fair though, at least Zayden was claiming his original age, his actual age of 9. You know, Barry claiming 28. What's all that about?
28 was my mental age.
All right. Fair enough. But no,
yeah,
it was. Yeah, I thought I agree with the lads. I must say it was a bit. It's odd because it was a really open game to begin with, and I think that because they did have a couple of chances, and Stu's right. You know, if they are to come back, they're going to have to score within first 20, 30 minutes, aren't they, to have any chance? And for me, it was a bit strange because they did have a couple of opportunities where they could have got an early goal if they had, had finished better in that. So for me, it wasn't like the greatest of starts for us. We should have perhaps been a little bit more compact to begin with. But having said that, they didn't score, and the game went on. I thought we began to control bit better. Obviously, we had a few chances ourselves, like their goal assist in the post and that. But and I'm sure we'll come on to Rashford. That to go from missing assist a minute before and then doing that. It was overall a good performance, and it keeps our winning run going. And it's third time we've beaten Spanish opposition now, isn't it? So we've got Sevilla to come, but it appears that when previously Spanishes were a bit of a hoodoo for us, and now we got Sevilla in that. But hopefully we're coming out on the other side now. So, but yeah, a good professional performance in the end.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we've played, or we will have played, 4 Spanish sides. We'll have played 20% of La Liga, was a stat that I read. By the end of this Europa League, whatever happens, which is quite something, really, isn't it, for a competition that's supposed to be all around Europe.
I read a stat that we're only the second team to play 4 teams from the same country in European competition. I think the other one was Leeds in 2001. So it is quite an incredible stat, that, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, City would be crying because they obviously they drew Munich, didn't they, today? Buying a plane superbly well.
And if they get past them, Madrid, probably. Yeah,
so our trip is it's Juve, isn't it? Are we in the Juve side of the draw? We are in the Juve side of the draw, are we?
Juve Sporting, yeah.
So it'd be quite because Sporting are okay. I mean, that Calves goal yesterday was phenomenal. It was a wonderful strike. It was more deft, wasn't it, than power? It was a beautiful top of the boot kind of drive. But, yeah, well, yeah, Beckham-esque.
Because I look at that goal there and I think, is it when you look at Ramsdale, was it the flight that beat him?
It was, because if you look at the way that he actually used his foot, he didn't drive it. He didn't actually drive through the ball like that. He put a lot of spin on it. It was kind of like almost that motion. It was a wonderful strike. I don't know quite how he. It's one of those where if you don't hit that right, then you're done. It's like me and Dan were talking about the Casemiro sending off. If he touches it with the flat of his foot, the ball of his foot, he doesn't twist onto the guy's shin, because he didn't. And that was the same with that Concalva strike. It's a wonderful strike. I don't know whether Ramsdale was at fault or not. I can't quite work it out, because he wasn't miles off his line, was he?
No,
I think miles off. No,
I think in fairness, it's probably the one thing about being a sweeper keeper, which if anything, you criticise for being a bit off time. But it didn't look like it was. It wasn't like it was 20 yards off his line, was he? Probably no further than the penalty spot. Really, it's just like it's probably the flight and the direction that did
I didn't think he was further than the penalty spot. I thought that's where he was as well. So
but even if he's on the penalty spot, it's that unexpectedness, isn't it? It's the fact that you're not expecting somebody to shoot from the halfway line generally. So when it does that as well, you lose it a millisecond or whatever, just thinking, hang on a minute, he's had a shot. What's going on?
I'll tell you what, though, you've got to that's take some balls to back yourself from there.
Yeah, it went in the perfect place as well. It literally a little bit more and it would have hit the crossbar, and a little bit less and he would have saved it. It was perfect in every single way. It was like Beckham against Wimbledon.
You talk about balls whilst he's 1-0 down as well.
That's what I mean. Yeah, you've got to get yourself back into the game, and I don't know. I mean, Arsenal went out on the penalty shootout, and anyone could go out on the penalty shootout, but Arsenal didn't really recover, did they? They kind of.
No, I think they pressed a little bit towards the end of stoppage time, but I think they're all. No, Sporting were very much. It was very much an even game, so went to penalties.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
Oh,
sorry, Barry.
We're having a little chat about Arsenal losing on penalties. That's always going to cheer me up. And that was by far the best present I got all day. So I chuckled heartily at that. So there we go. I've got to say, this guy's back again. Old Man U winners. He's consistent with his views. We lost 2 in 22 games. Great form, break, very needed. Then we have a straight shootout. We win 12 games. We win the Premier League by 1 point. I mean, he's
not wrong, is he?
This in-depth breakdown, not encouraging gambling, but the odds are 100 to 1. And we're still going to win it by 1 point, which is amazing. Arsenal crumble to continue. City shaky. And then we're pipping them, I think he means, there to the line, rather than peeing them to the line, which feels like something you might do in the men's urinals there, with the old pointing at the toilet. But there we go. And one of the best equalisers in a knockout competition, wild accuracy.
Yeah, he's right. He's right.
It's interesting. If the old away goals are counted, Arsenal would have gone through, wouldn't they?
You are sorry. The old away goals.
They don't.
Yeah, he would have.
Dan, I wanted to ask you this question about our game, because it's been put up by Asim, and I think it's quite a good question. He said, was the game too open for everyone's liking? We conceded a lot of shots, albeit few on target. They had 15 shots. We had 17. They had 2 on target. We had 4. So it was a very, very, very open game. I assume it didn't really bother you though, Dan.
I actually enjoyed that it was opening in one aspect, because it felt, I don't know about anybody else, but it felt to me that we was playing a much higher line yesterday, and David De Gea seemed to come to the edge of his box a lot more to like, not rescue situations, but be in control. And I don't know why, but every time Maguire starts, we always seem to be 10 yards up the pitch. It doesn't apparently suit him, but it definitely happens. It was a bit open, but I honestly, there was a couple of occasions where I thought they might jump in. But then I was never like overly panicked, if that makes sense. I thought we did really well. And honestly, in the second half, it felt like we was just passing around and trying to score for the sake of a player making a name for himself. Like when Sancho came on, I honestly thought he was one of the better players on the pitch. Obviously, we'll talk about Rashford. I thought he was absolutely awful yesterday. He walked away with man of the match. Obviously, his goal was an absolute wonder goal. But in terms of play, he was all over the place. His passing was a bit short. His decision-making wasn't fantastic. Sancho was one of the better players. But towards the end of the game, it felt like we probably could have got 2 or even 3 if they would have just looked up, made one more pass. But they just wasn't doing it. It was sort of, I think it was sort of squad players trying to make a name for themselves by the end of that game. If I can get on the score sheet, it makes me look good. The same with Alanga. Alanga came on and did the same.
Is there any truth to this vile rumour that's being spread
It's
about?
very, very true. I did ask for a boring 0-0. No injuries, no sending offs. And it's pretty much nearly what we got in terms.
Nearly what we got.
Well,
I'm delighted.
That's the real reason why you think Rashford had a bad game, because he got 30-yarder, didn't he?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I had 0-0 on the bet. No, I genuinely didn't think he just wasn't on it yesterday. I thought he was picking some wrong passes and stuff. But I mean, the goal was ridiculous, wasn't it? You could see what he was going to do the entire time, and they still couldn't stop him doing it.
Absolutely. Man U winners again. What made him happy was not just the Arsenal loss. He really wanted the extra time to have them deflated on Sunday. So you'll be delighted by the fact that Patrick Vieira has been sacked.
New manager bounce.
Exactly. We'll have the new manager bounce as well. So who knows? Maybe Man U winners is the new Mystic Meg. Who knows? Stu, I wanted to ask you a question. And so they've just come back. It was a shame there because I thought we were introducing Bruno Fernandes to the chat there, but he's disappeared now, so we'll have to make do with you. There was a moment in the game that I found quite interesting. It was early on in the first half. Ayoze Perez had just had a shot that had gone wide, and the ball comes into the middle of the pitch. And it was as Betis were pushing, because they really did start well. They were really trying to get that early goal that would have made a bit of a game of it, maybe, because confidence flowing would have maybe had a few nerves. But there was just a moment where one of their players tried to run to get the ball and sort of ran into the back of the referee. The referee didn't have a clue he was there. His back was to the player. And there was a lot of whinging there that the game should have stopped. But I don't think that's true. I think it's if the ref gets in the way of the ball, not if if the ref touches the ball, the play stops, they get given the ball. It's not the case if they run into the referee, is it? They should be looking where they're going, surely. Oh, hang on, you muted, mate.
What we're saying is, to be fair, that there has been times where if a player has bumped into a referee and the referee wasn't known about it, etc., a drop ball. So for Betis, they're just wanting the drop ball. I don't think there's a specific rule that states that if a player runs into a referee, the referee's got to stop the game, because there has been instances where that has happened, where a player's run into a ref and the ref's gone, tough, and the game's gone on. If you're going for a throw in, or the ball's at a player, whatever, and you bump into the referee's not deliberately there to stop you from progressing. He's not deliberately there to stop you from taking the throw or taking the free kick. It's just one of those freak things. In Spain, if managers know when the ball isn't quite round in Spain, let's put it that way, so they'll complain about that. They'll complain if they've got blue drinks instead of orange drinks, that type of thing. This is what they do. And I think a lot of their players realised that there was some kind of momentum that they got at that particular time, and they wanted to see if they could capitalise on it. Ultimately, even if they had scored, it wouldn't have made any difference to the outcome of the game, because we had enough in the locker to be able to score one, maybe two. I know you were talking about Rashford's goal. It's one of the best strikes I've seen in a long, long time. The swerve, no, because there was very little dip, was phenomenal. So, in answer to your question, Barry, if I was on that pitch, I'd just be laughing at them, winding them up even more, because there was just nothing in it. And if I was the ref, not that you can, I'd just turn around and say, oh, for fuck's sake, just get on with it. What are you, 12? That type of thing. And that's how it is. Now, if it was me and the ref had impeded me, A, I would have shoved him out of the way, probably would have got a booking for it, and B, I would have had a right go with him. So
Hello, de Woolio there.
yeah, so football is all about double standards, guys. And if it goes against me, I'm whinging, but and I'm laughing the opposite way. But there is no, and correct me if I'm wrong here, John, but there is no precedent in terms of rules at stake. If there is,
I mean, up until a few years ago, you couldn't. The ref has stopped play if the ball hits him, but that's the only rule I'm aware of, and that's only been a rule last 2 or 3 years, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I like I say, I haven't seen anything, so I like stuff like that. Look, Barry, it's tantamount to some moron coming on the pitch in leggings, or he's got a ponytail. That's what it's tantamount to. They just look idiots, and you just look an idiot when you do that. And to me, for the opposition, it then gives you something to start grating these players for. It's another little thing you can start. Oh, do you want me to get the ball for you? Well, you stay there, mate, and I'll just go and I'll get that for you. And then you chuck it 10 yards down the line, so he's got to go and pick it up anyway. So it's
I think it's one of those, isn't it? It's interesting, and that was.
I've never done that, Barry. Obviously, because I'm a consummate professional when I play. I would never do that.
100%, very fair. Whilst we're on this, the special one's coming with a point. This question's already been answered. Not interested. That's the answer you got to give to that question. That's the one Sir Alex gave, so I think that's the one we'll give on that one. Not interested. To be honest, if we're listening to Man U winners, it's going to be us anyway by a point. So
absolutely,
I missed that bit. John, I just wanted to sort of talk to you again about the game a bit, because it was a battle of attrition, wasn't it? I mean, we said about it being an open game, but it really was. And I really enjoyed the first half. Like Dan said, it was one of those where actually, because it was open, it did feel like it meant something at that point. And it was one of those where you felt the jeopardy of conceding a goal, but you also wanted to just nick one, because you knew if you nicked one, it would effectively deflate them. They would know that they had no chance. And it was quite interesting. I was in a group chat where somebody did say, when we scored the goal, there you go, it's all right, tie's over now. And other people are like, the tie was already over. It's like, but if they'd have scored, it might not have been, because you get one. It's not that hard then to necessarily go and get another. So, but it was, wasn't it? It was a battle of attrition between two teams, and it was always going to be a sort of a scruffy game in terms of a win for United if we won at all.
Yeah, I agree. And I think obviously they had to come out, because if they were to have any chance of winning, they would have had to score in the first half an hour or so. You look at some of the famous comebacks down the years, and that if you're 3 goals behind, you get one before half time, and then you follow with a second, then you got momentum. I'm not buying. I think particularly getting the 4th goal last week was important, because if it was 3-1, then you're always capable of scoring 2 in 10 minutes, aren't you? Even if it's 0-0 into 70 minutes and you still need 2, you're still in the game. Whereas I think having the 3-goal lead was important, but that being said, you still needed to finish it off. For me, it was important that you didn't concede in the first half an hour. It was always inevitable that they were going to take the attack towards to try and get an early goal, and then you heard the crowd, and now the crowd were up for it. If they had scored, the crowd would have been more up for it, and that's what I mean. So for me, the game is never done until it's officially done. And I did think as soon as they didn't score in the first half an hour, I thought we can game manage it now, maybe just nick one, which we did with Rashford's going that, and then then it's like a training ground exercise. Just maintain your discipline, not picking up any silly yellows for suspensions or anything like that. And I just think you just got to manage it. So for me, it was interesting the way how open it was, and also how open we allowed it to be as well, which I don't think then I would have been best pleased with our performance in the first 10-15 minutes, except for we didn't concede, but we could have conceded if they had taken one of their chances. So we do got to be a little bit wary for that in games. We got Sevilla and then maybe Juventus or Sporting. You can't afford to be conceding a goal away from home early, because otherwise the crowd will be up. But as soon as we got that Rashford goal, the tie was officially over at that point.
Absolutely. And Niles popped in with this lovely little thing. Absolutely. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody who might partake in
St.
such
Patrick's Day. I'm wearing green, so
I'm not. But there we go. So good stuff there. And the special one's popped in again. He's clearly up for a little conversation about these guys. So let's hear him for a minute. It says, I consider City our biggest rivals after Liverpool, not Arsenal. I'm intrigued, actually, as to what your thoughts might be on that one. City, the biggest rivals after Liverpool, not Arsenal. Where would you three fit on that question?
Well, I would say Liverpool are our biggest, and obviously, I think if you're from Manchester, City will be the second team. But it's also worth noting also that Arsenal, after United and Liverpool, Arsenal are third in terms of title successes, aren't they? League titles, wasn't that? But having said that, if I had to pick one between Arsenal and City, it would be Arsenal this season. But yeah, it depends where you're from. If you're from London, you might consider Arsenal or Chelsea the biggest. So, but for me, yeah, I will put City second to Liverpool.
One of those things with this one, isn't it? Because City has always been our traditional rival, obviously the noisy neighbours. We've had all of that. But then City disappeared for many years, went down into the Championship, League One sort of area, then rose like a phoenix from the ashes and started actually battling us. Whereas Arsenal, nobody's ever going to forget those games in the 90s and the early thousands as we started seeing the epic rivalry between Fergie and Wenger. So again, Stu and Dan, where would you go with this?
It's a tricky one, really, because in the 70s when I was growing up, it was Liverpool. 60s was Leeds, 60s was Leeds, 70s was Liverpool, early 80s, you've got Everton in the mix there. Back in 92, you had Leeds in the mix again. So I think it's a generational thing, really. For me, it will always be Liverpool. I've got no time for City. The City that you see today, true City fans won't really like because, true City fans used to stand in the Kippax who, even when City were down in Division 4 or Division 3, what it is, City have had some terrible times. And so I've never really seen City as a rival to us. We used to always beat them when I was growing up. So I think it's generational. I get where he's coming from, a special one. But for me, I grew up where Liverpool, dominated English football. And they got some of the greatest players in Liverpool's history at that time were playing for the club. And they were always a thorn in our side. But back in the 50s, people might consider Arsenal or even Tottenham. Because Tottenham were playing exceptionally well at the time. So for me, it's just generational. So I would have to say Liverpool for me personally, but City don't even come with it for me. I don't see them as a rival at all.
I think it depends where you are from, because I'm obviously from Manchester, and the talk was always when you're from Manchester, are you red or blue, basically. So for me, it's like when there's a buzz about the City whenever we play City and that. So for me, rivalries change over time. It depends who you're competing with, though, isn't it? So,
well, the other way to look at it is, we've had players go from United to City. But in my lifetime, and I haven't got the greatest memory, I can't think of a player that's gone from Man United directly to Liverpool.
I can tell you the answer to that. It was Phil Chisnell. He went
Chizzy, so that's years ago.
Phil Chisnell, and he sadly passed away 2 years ago. But in my local church, he was always a parishioner.
Chisnell, so that's how long ago is that then? Chisnell,
1964.
Yeah, 64. Yeah. So there you go again. So and because you don't sign for your biggest rivals, Paul Ince did it a different way, didn't he?
I know.
Into Milan and then And then he came
No,
in.
Tevez was the last one to go straight for United City, though, wasn't he?
Tevez, yeah. Didn't Hargreaves go directly?
Oh, sorry, yeah, Hargreaves did do it.
Yeah, as well. But
So,
and that's why you don't go to your bitter rivals, and that's
hmm.
why for me it's Liverpool. But anyway, I accept everyone's decision on that one.
And then Connor here giving it the don't get Barry started on rivals again. That's because when we were sat over on the women's channel, we were talking about rivalries and how you can't just directly transpose a rivalry from the men's game and force it into the women's one when it's not necessarily existent. You're going to get your own rivalries based on games that have been played. And the example we gave was Durham. You talk on this channel here about Durham and everybody's going to go, what? Why would you be talking about Durham being rivals to Man United? But the people that watch Man United women will know exactly what we mean when we say the word Durham, because you're like, oh, pesky little so-and-sos. And anyway, Connor says, don't get me started on it before getting me started on it, because he talks about Liverpool, City and Arsenal in that order for me, with the Leeds just after. So, Dan, what would you go with?
I'm a little bit different. I think it is definitely generational. Obviously, growing up, it was always Arsenal. They was the team that was always challengers in the 90s. So the start of the season, you look for the Arsenal game because that's where your title challenges were, and you look for the Liverpool games after that because that's where the rivalry was. And then City weren't even a thought when I was younger. They wasn't around. I think he was in League One. So yeah, I would say Liverpool are the biggest rivals that I still look for now. To be fair, in terms of the game, that's probably because most of the family support Liverpool. But yeah, I would say Liverpool and Arsenal. In terms of the actual question of who would I prefer to win it, I genuinely don't care if City win the league. It's just one of them things from where it's come from. If they don't win the league, it's a bit of a failure on their part. And if they do win the league, I sort of shrug my shoulders and go, it's quite expected, really. They should be winning it every year by a distance, to be fair. Whereas if Arsenal win it, it's actually quite some achievement. So their fans have got a little bit more to lord over us than if City win it. If anything, most seasons, I think, why not City on for the quadruple? Because they should be every year. So, yeah, I would probably say Liverpool, Arsenal, City on that one.
Yeah, I think, honestly, Arsenal, modern day, have been traditional sort of rivals and very noisy. I'm with you. City were disappeared for a long time, but then again, can we ever forget the infamous Dennis Law going to City as well? So there's been plenty of it about, and Stu's right, it's generational. And if you know your history about Manchester United, then you'll understand why this is not necessarily an easy question, but you're absolutely welcome, special one. We don't mind indulging people that get involved with sensible questions. And yes, John Kay, like a history book of knowledge. We're going to be calling you Stato at this rate.
Yeah. I actually knew Phil Chisnell, so it was. It was unfortunately he was in a wheelchair towards the end of his days and that, but he was. You could go up to him and say, like, interesting. Another stat. He was on the first ever match of the day.
Well, there we go. You couldn't have been on it last week because nobody was.
No.
There we go. Dan, moving back to the Betis game after our little half-time interval there. We had the first start of, I'm going to say it wrong now, Facundo, I think I've got that right, Pelistri, starting off in the game, which was really, really good. And I thought he was awesome for that first half. He put loads of effort in. He's a really skillful little fella. But he was also given a yellow card, which I have to say, I'm struggling with, because he slides in. If you haven't seen it, he slides in, kicks the ball away. Matey then runs and falls over him like some sort of Looney Tunes cartoon. And somehow he gets booked for the guy not realising he should jump over his legs when he's won the ball. Now, that seemed to me to be a heck of a decision to make. I mean, we've had a lot of chat about referees over the last few weeks through the various different matches that we watched, but that was a special decision, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, I personally, at the minute, this season in particular, football is in the toilet in terms of decisions. Some of them are so baffling. When it happened, even in quick motion, there was no possible way that he committed a foul. So I don't understand what the referee saw to book him. Like, even when you watch it back, it's not a foul at all from any of them. He's got the ball and they've just collided. It should just be play on. I'm side watching the Newcastle game, and there's been a tackle in this game that is very similar to Casemiro's, and it's a yellow card. And I'm baffled as to why, because he stood on the top of the ball, it's rolled over the ball and gone onto his ankle, and obviously Newcastle players are up in arms, and it's been given as a yellow. But yeah, the refereeing decisions at the minute, and I think the good thing is I'm not sort of saying it's just against United, because it's not. I think across the entire board, the entire season, it's been so bad for absolutely everybody. Pelistri's performance, I thought he was excellent. Me and Stu was talking about his low centre of gravity and his ability. He always got the ball within a dustbin lid of his feet. It's fantastic to watch. I think we'll see a lot more of him now. I think Garnacho's 7 to 8 weeks injured, so we'll definitely see more of him. I just hope he can make an impact like Garnacho has, because I think he's won us a couple of games, come on and got an assist in a couple of games as well. So with that in mind, I'm hoping he can sort of bring the same thing to the table. I've been reading that we're going to send him out on loan. So I think this is a perfect opportunity for him to sort of show that he shouldn't be going on loan and he should be staying next season. So he's got to get the bit between his teeth, really. It's a good chance for him.
Absolutely, and maintaining the chat about Pelistri there, Stu. Just before half time, we had a cracking moment where we very nearly got the early goal that surely would have seen a raft of substitutions coming at half time. But I think Casemiro earned the free kick. The free kick comes in. Casemiro's in trying to get the header. He doesn't quite get there. It gets headed back out. And Pelistri, sort of about 12, 15 yards out maybe, just little right-footed volley that just sort of trickles its way in and then hits the post and comes back off of it. We couldn't quite get the poke in then, I think, from Weghorst. But he really was. He was a menace, is the word I would use. I think he was a menace, and he's a menace to everybody he plays at the minute.
Yeah, look, he's a funny one, really, because Ben Pearce, if he's watching, will be dancing a jig because Ben Pearce loves Pelistri, and he said this season would be his season. Now, a conversation that we had on an earlier show this week, I can't remember when it was now, Dan, to be fair. I've completely lost track. Was it Wednesday?
I can't remember.
Yeah, Wednesday or Tuesday. Anyway, I suggested, quite controversially, that Pelistri would be better as a 10, and he would be. He'd be perfect for us in a 10. When we're all fit and firing, he would be better for us in a 10 because of the way that he carries the ball, because of his speed. He almost glides across the pitch with it. He's very, and I compared him to Tuesday, yeah. And then I did compare him at the time to his control ability, the way that Messi carries the ball. He carries the ball very, very similar, the way that his stature is and the way that he moves with it. And I made great pains to say, I'm not saying he's Messi, I'm just saying that's what he does. And he showed that actually in glimpses on Thursday night. He showed it. And I think he'd be a dangerous player for us if we use him right. Now, a lot of people think he's an outside winger, which I think he is. He is an old traditional winger. But there's more to Pelistri than just wing play. He's got a bit more about him. And I think if we nurtured him as a 10, I think it'd be a brilliant option for us. I'd play him there on Sunday against Fulham. I'd stick him in the 10 against Fulham, really. I think it'd be great for us. Just want to pick up on the free kicks and the refereeing decisions. Look, I will always come out and say refs don't cost you football matches, goals cost you football matches. And I've always believed it and always will do. And refereeing decisions you're seeing today are no different to what they were back in the 70s and the 80s. When I was grew up playing football, etc., they're no different. Refereeing hasn't improved at all. Yes, technology is moving forward. Referees' ability to, the fitness levels are far better now because they're professional, but they're still making the fundamentals and they're getting them wrong. But here's the thing, and as a player, I'm capitalising on this now. I'm doing everything that I can to test the limits of what is perceived and what is not perceived to be a foul now, because nobody knows. I'm testing the limits of what's perceived to be handball and what isn't handball anymore, because nobody knows. I'm testing the limits of everything, and I'm looking at the referee and I'm putting the pressure on him rather than me. And that's whether you do something subtle or whether you do something like the lad did against Palestri, just blatant. I'm just going to trip over your leg, mate, and see what happens. You know, as you quite rightly say, you could have jumped over him, no problem at all. But and players are getting a lot more cleverer because they can get away with certain elements of the game now, but they can't get away with other elements of the game. So it's a 50-50 chance that you're going to either get sent off or booked, or you're just going to completely get away with it. So you're going to test those limits as a player. You have to test those limits as a player. And you know, that's what they're doing. And until the match going officials, the PMOGL, whatever it is, gets their act together in the UK. I mean, we can't legislate for European referees anyway. They're just idiots, half of them. Nobody knows what you're doing. We go out and play every year in Portugal. We play a Beits tournament every year in Portugal. And every year it's different, you know, in terms of can you grapple the centre forward, and can't you grapple the centre forward? Oh, I'm watching you for grappling. Well, I've been doing it for 5 games. Why are you only telling me now? You know, this type of thing. That's what happens. You know, when you're on that pitch, you just don't know. So you've got to test the limits, and that's, you know, that's football's always been that way. But Stato Johnny, in his knowledge, will tell you back in the 70s. You know, if Palestri's doing that, then this lad's gone over and Palestri's getting up and he's kicking him. You know, I'll give you something to fall over for, pal. And then he's walking away and he's getting away with it because back then you could do that. And then slowly but surely in the 90s, you could still get away with it to an extent in the 90s. And then as soon as 2000s came, that was it. Everything, you know, and I've got to be careful what I say here, but the influx of the more exotic player who would come and, you know, David Ginola, if you blew by him, crikey, go over. Jack Grealish, if you're anywhere within the vicinity of him, he's just going over. It changed the game and it changed the face of what was perceived, as I say, to be a foul and what was perceived to be what I call hard play and tough play. And I was brought up with the fact that put the pressure onto the referee and put the pressure onto your opponent. And if he can't handle what you're giving it to him, then it should give you an easier game. But some refs will allow you to go in hard on a player. Some refs won't. So, but nobody knows. That's the problem. Until you cross that white line, until you test the limits of the referee's, you know, patience, etc. in that game, you'll never ever know. So it's a trick.
The problem from that, Stu, is that it creates anarchy, doesn't it? I mean, you look at the Casemiro red card for grabbing what ended up being a shirt collar, when there's other players who have genuinely grabbed the neck, and he's the only one that gets punished for that. This is what it creates, because if everybody's trying to do that, then you have no control, and that's why these refs are supposed to have, you know, you put it back to school, like where I am. You know, you have to set the strict boundaries. If you don't set the boundaries so that everybody knows, look, if you do X, Y happens, and it doesn't matter who it is who does it, whether you are the most well-behaved child in the school or whether or not you are the one who's always sitting outside the head's office, if you do this, this happens. Well, then that's when you end up with trouble.
Yeah, a good example, Barry, is if you remember the back end of the start of last season is a great example. Everton Wolves. They're grappling, aren't they, in the penalty area, and there's a penalty given. Roll it fast forward that to today, the same challenge, you get away with it.
Correct.
But the rules haven't changed.
Exactly that. Because people whinge about it. Managers, that's never a free kick, that's never a penalty, that's not supposed to happen. So then they start going, we'll go a little bit more lenient on that one.
No,
it's whatever the flavour of the month is.
Yeah, look, I'll walk out on a Saturday afternoon if I play on a Saturday afternoon now, and you know, and you shake the ref's hand, and I'll say to the ref, make sure you're fair today, pal. You know, don't be going against our team or go against their team. Make sure you're fair and you're right down the middle. When you call for the first challenge, make sure that sets the precedent for the game, so that we all know, so that we know what you can get away with and what you can't get away with. You got to talk to the refs all the time, and this is why these players are talking to them, because they don't get it. Half the time, they're not understanding. They're looking around and saying, what the hell are you doing? I did that 5 minutes ago. You let me get away with it. Why did you let me get away with it now?
Yeah.
It's a real problem, Barry. It really is.
It genuinely is, and it's not going to get solved here tonight. But 100%, it needs
I
to
don't think
be.
it's going to get solved at all. That's the sorry part of football. It won't get solved at all.
But it won't, because, like you say, they're too wishy-washy. It's too easy to change it. It's too
And
easy
that's
to sit there and go, "I will be a little bit more lenient."
Yeah.
You've got to be
And that's
really
why-
careful as well, because just as a side note to the Betis game, they played the referee for a good half an hour in that game with doing exactly what we're describing now, going down on little contact. They were sticking the foot in and loving a good challenge, but then as soon as they got it back, they was going down, rolling around for a bit. And there was a point where I was just like, this is why I don't like playing European opposition, Spanish opposition. And it's why I constantly find myself, you know what, if the English team won, I don't really mind that much, because it seems to happen a lot more in Europe. And this is where you need your players like Fernandez that's going to roll around and try and con the referee. And because if you're never going to beat it, so you're going to have to join it at some point. But I would say
thing, Dan,
English sides are nowhere near European sides yet. There's a big gap.
You watch our next game against Sevilla, and you just watch. If a player goes down, he rolls around, he'll look at the referee when he's on the floor. And if the ref blows, he'll carry on rolling around. If he doesn't, he'll go, "What's all that about?" And he'll get up and get on with it. That's what they do. And that's them looking at you and think, right, so I can't do that. I can't get away with it. So I need to adjust now how I'm going to roll or how I'm going to fall.
Yeah, what different can I try to get the free kick, to get under the ref's skin?
Honestly, Dan, I know it sounds stupid, but it happens in the game, and you can see it unfold right in front of you. I mean, you've all played football. We've all played football at different levels, and it doesn't really matter which level you play, but you can see it unfold right in front of you. You can almost determine which player he is. And it always used to be, if I was playing the centre midfield, if he's got, I'll give you something to go down for, then, mate. I'll make sure I'll give you something to go down for. And that's gone out the game now, Dan. You don't see that.
There's a few examples of that with, I think it was their left winger or whoever was marking Rashford, right winger, that was following back. He must have kicked him a couple of times, and then Rashford stopped when he was offside, and they got into a little shoving match. And as soon as Rashford gave him one back, I think he did about 15 rolls before he stopped. Yeah. And he was constantly at the ref or booking. And Rashford just looked taken aback by what he was watching. And it's just that, I suppose it's clever in a way. He's trying to play the referee, get Rashford booked, just get an advantage somehow.
But I mean, like I say, Rashford then, I'll give you something to whinge about, mate. I always say this. I will give you something to moan about. And you're always talking to each other during games, and people are constantly having a go, they're abusing each other and all this. All this conversation with players is 99% it's abuse. It really is. They're not talking about the weather or talking about what car they're buying tomorrow. It's always abuse, because you're trying desperately to get in ahead. And,
sledging, they'd call it in cricket.
Sledging as it is, but the other thing is you're also being quite physical off the ball as well. When the ref's not looking, you're being quite physical with this player because you want to test his limits. It's like in boxing. If you take your first jab and it really gives you a problem, mentally you're gonna have an issue with it. But if you can take his jab and you think, what was that? It gives you this.
I think there's a lot of players, to get something out of them, they have to get angry, and therefore they'll pick on someone. Like, for example, like you mentioned cricket, by like Shane Wall, when it wasn't his day, he'd be like, pick on someone. It's like, oh, what are you looking at? Kind of, just things like that, just to get you in.
The fast bowler was worse, wasn't he? He was that Aussie fast bowler. Merv Hughes, didn't he used to growl or something?
Merv Hughes
with the moustache.
Yeah.
He used to growl and shout and all this, when he was bowling.
I can't remember the one you're talking about, but
yeah.
No, he used to say to the batsman, bastard, bastard, bastard. And then there was I think they were playing a cricket match, and a great batsman was like, yeah, but you're nothing but a fat bus conductor. and then he got him out, and then he was like, ding, tickets, please. That kind of thing. It's There are some
Yeah.
classic stories in cricket, though. So yeah.
Yeah, I
But
can
no,
believe
it is. But it doesn't have to be that. It can be. It's like, I mean, you can go back 10 years to maybe that Suarez ever incident, can't
Yeah.
you? As well,
Bloody hell, 10 years.
Yeah, it has. It's one of those which will rage on and on, I'm sure. But until they make some rules that they actually stick to, rather than having little fluffy edges, they are going to struggle. So there we go. Just thinking a little bit about the second half. As I said, the second half was a bit dead. I only wrote 2 things down that were of any note for me. The first of which was quite a good save from David De Gea after the 53rd minute. A little header from Jose Perez that did look like it might have gone in, but it was very well saved. And then, of course, Marcus Rashford sticking the ball over the bar. Well, I mean, I'd have bet pretty much everything I owned if I'd have seen that. If that was like a what happens next on A Question of Sport and it just paused before he kicked it, you'd go, goal, surely he's going to score that. Look at what he's been doing. And from what I understand, there's going to be some sort of claim being put in, because I'm 99% sure it took out a drone that happened to be flying over and above, because it was, well, I don't think it's come down yet. Dan.
If it's the one I'm thinking, it's the one that he blamed the bubble, didn't he? He took a tiny little bubble and he roofed it. It was shocking. But I think it's because he was going for so much power, to be honest, instead of just sort of being a bit more gentle with it. But as you see, the power works in the end.
I think that's probably what caused him to think, right, I've had a naff game, I'm just going to try
I'm going to hit
it. I was
just going to say that. Was that like a little bit of fuel? Because that goal, just sublime.
Yeah.
I would like to say, Dan, you can get a bubble on AstroTurf as well. Not that it's ever happened to me. I'm just saying, you can get one.
No, I do think. I'll tell you what the goal reminded me a little bit of. You remember like the Beckham goal against Arsenal in '99, albeit it was on the opposite side. But in terms of like the way it was whipped in, like the keeper was at full stretch and it nestled right in the bottom corner. Like almost like the keeper. It's like he took the shot early and it just like keep up full stretch, not sending it around the boss. God, it reminded me very much of that. Same thing happened with Bruno over head kick, didn't it? Against City, he was having an awful game and he's lost control. He miscontrolled it. If anyone was
terrible,
that one against City was even better because he was arguing with the ref. And then he finished arguing with the ref. Over there, and then what?
Newcastle volley. That was
so Newcastle. Good. Sorry, yes, it was.
Yeah, but now the City overhead kick one, he was having an awful game. He almost like, let's have an overhead kick hitting up, and he just saw one of the great goals. Didn't he? These things can happen,
Joe Hart hasn't moved since.
Yes,
he was absolutely rooted, wasn't he, Harty? Absolutely.
I used to work with someone, and they used to say Joe Hart is like a hard and left. It's an open goal. Like if it goes low to his left hand side, he was terrible at diving low, and none of the goals.
Yeah. He's a local lad, Joe is, and three of us know him quite well. And when he comes home. He's obviously up in Glasgow. When he comes home, he goes into town or whatever. Yeah, we rib him on that all the time. It was terrible. Do you know what his demise was, though? Funnily enough, he was playing really, really well until Pirlo absolutely embarrassed him with that chip, that Panenka penalty. He was never the same since. He's never been the same goalkeeper since Pirlo in the World Cup. Was it the World Cup, John, or the Euros? Euros. There you go. Look at him.
Yeah.
He'll tell you.
Yeah.
He was giving Pirlo, wasn't he? He was sledging. He was giving Pirlo.
No, it was a penalty shootout in Euro 2012, but they beat us on our opening match in 2014 World Cup, the 2-1, wasn't it? So
that was the demise of Joe Hart. He was embarrassed, wasn't he? At the Euros.
The thing about Rashford, I mean, we've said that he's been quite fluid this season in terms of he's done a good job, whether he's been playing through the middle or he's played through the left. But this goal for me sums Rashford up, because I think it's what he's so good at. It's that ability to be able to find a way inside onto his right foot and fire that ball into the far post in the manner that he does. And for me, I would still maintain that Rashford's best position is on the left. I'd still give him a crack at centre forward as well, though. Where would you guys put him if you were given the unenviable opportunity of being the manager of Manchester United, poison chalice though it might be at times? Where would you put him, left or centre?
I wouldn't put him centre forward. John knows my type of centre forward. Dan doesn't, but John does. And but he's not a striker for me. You know, his centre forward's got to live in, you know, the 9 yards. You know, just off the penalty spot. He's got to live in that box. That's where he should be alive. And Rashford isn't just alive for that. He's scored a couple of great headers this year. But he's not alive for me on that. When you look at the great strikers, Van Nistelrooy being one, for example, he was absolutely rapid. As soon as he was in the box, Ronaldo again, as soon as he's in the box, he's on the move. Cavani was an absolute master at moving a split second quicker than anybody else to sense danger. And Weghorst tried it actually last night, and he and nobody saw it. You guys might have seen it, but did you see it when the ball when the ball cut across? It was off the corner or whatever. Weghorst was the only one that dived. The only one that dived, and it was purely based on anticipation and instinct. And sometimes you've got to do that. You've got to dive, make yourself look a complete tit to actually eventually get on there. And it's the 99% of striking is all about instinct and knowing where you've got to be at the right time. So the ball, you either put it away expertly or you're still in there and it comes off your shoulder or whatever. That's what striking's about. And Rashford, Martial, that other idiot we don't speak about, who people wanted through the middle, they haven't got that instinct. You don't have it. And Weghorst, we don't know if he's got it or not, because the way that he runs and the way that he opens up the defence allows Rashford and Antony to have that space that they need to score the goals, the types of goals they've been scoring. Last night's goal, by the way, for Rashford, if you're the right back, if you're centre half, you're looking at a right back, what are you doing? Well, you're pulling up your socks or something, because when he took it, you knew straight away by his body language, because he took two very short touches, one to get it under, one to move it off his foot, and to give him enough of a stride to put the power through it. And the fullback's like going, what's going on here then? He's nowhere near him. The fullback should have been absolutely flying into Rashford. But he didn't anyway. I'm glad he didn't, and Rashford expertly put it away. But you know, that's, you know, I don't know why I'm picking on the fullback. I shouldn't really, because the goal was expert. I've not actually seen an angle yet. I'm sure you guys have, but I haven't, from behind Rashford. I'd love to see the trajectory of the football.
Brilliant.
Because the original camera angle, was obviously to his right, his far right. And you could see a bit of swerve, couldn't you? But you just saw the ball.
It was It was just like the keeper, like I said, was at full stretch. He couldn't have tried any on it. Just sometimes you just got to put your hands up and say, round the side netting.
It was like Elisa's free kick, wasn't it, against us at Palace? It was just perfect, absolutely perfect. So.
He went about 5 yards forward as well before the swerve kicked in. It travelled just a little bit, so it looked like it was going straight, and then just suddenly started to curl away. So, I think literally from the back view, you can see the keeper sort of stretching. It's always just going away from his outstretched hand. It was such a good strike. Me personally, I think people always say he can do a job as a number 9. And I think that answers the question for me. He's better off the left, because doing a job, he's doing a job, but it's not enough. I think he always seems to be involved in more goals off the left as well, and more of the play. And I
left this up here. Do you guys agree with this?
No, I said this on a previous show, so I disagree with that completely, because he had an off season last season, which pretty much everybody had an off season last season. But the 2 seasons before, he posted really similar stats to what he's posting now. So that would say the 3 of the last 4 seasons, he's hit over 25 goals and assists. I think he's definitely an elite player. He's definitely got another level. He can. I think the word world class is thrown around way too much for footballers.
I never use it.
Yeah,
I think
he's definitely got another level, but he's definitely a top player.
I think he's proven himself to be elite, but he's got to. I think the only question might have against Rashford is now you got to do it next season, season after. That's it. You can't just have one season like this. You got to follow it up next season and then the season.
You have, haven't you? Yeah, you have, haven't you? I mean, Lewandowski's what, 32, 33 now, something like that. Hasn't he scored 25 goals plus the last 10 years?
Yeah.
Something along those lines, isn't it? I mean, that's just a ridiculous stat. Forget Messi and Ronaldo. You're talking about Lewandowski here. Absolutely superb. So,
and I think, and obviously, I think we're all in agreement. I think Rashford off the left coming inside is his best position. The only thing we're really lacking is a top class number 9. And my number 9, same as used to, predator injury, knowing where to be. Knowing where I think for me, someone like Harry Kane would be perfect. Just someone like the goals he scores for Tottenham, like Chelsea last week or whenever it was a flicked header by Dye. He knew where to be, and he's there finishing it, from a corner. It's about knowing where the ball's going to drop so that you can score a goal. And not many people have it, but I mean,
minute, absolutely minute.
Vlahovic
for me, Johnny. Vlahovic for me. I like Kane.
Vlahovic, yeah.
But Vlahovic for me.
Definitely, but that's what I mean. I just think it's so rare, but he's not got that absolute predatory instinct. Only a few have it.
Well, there we go.
As well, I just on the Rashford point, I don't think Rashford gets enough credit for his ability on the ball as well. So I think he's a lot better on the ball than people give him credit for in terms of being able to run with the ball and beat his man. And I think we see that much more on the left than we do when he's through the middle.
Well, there we go. Paul's put Rashford hits the ball like Ronaldo used to, whereas Mickey thinks world class can only be determined after a player's career.
Exactly right. Mickey is right.
Spot on.
Point. Man U winners says, allow me to be controversial because you've not done enough of that today already. If we get a big money buyer, if Ten Hag doesn't win the Premier League or Champions League the next 2 seasons, we will get an elite manager.
We've already got one.
I think we've already got one. I think that's.
We've already got one.
I'm gonna say it. I think that's a little bit disrespectful to a man who has quite literally changed the trajectory of this team.
If we were to win another trophy and possibly if we were to win 3 or 2 trophies, that's an unbelievable season. And in your first season for United. So
he's already at expectation and in March. So what everybody the highest expectation that we could have had, he's hit it already. Anything beyond now is an absolute bonus.
Barry,
can you
ban that Connor Roberts, Barry? I mean, come on.
Look at this. He was my next one, but these guys were still going on with that. A good point. He suggested Eric Maxim, Xiaopo Moting.
That lad has got the best agent in world football.
Hasn't he just? We only want
either him or what's his name? Martinez. Belgium manager now has got the
Belgium manager.
I know.
That is brilliant.
What's really interesting about this comment is that he's serious. So
he reckons he's joking underneath.
You ruined it. I don't know he was going to say that necessarily.
Get him off. Ban him. Just ban him. We only want people with football knowledge on in this.
It was possible, but he's got so much access. Here, what's happening with Sancho? You are going to have to tell me more about this, Liqueur. I'm afraid I don't know what you're asking me in terms of what's happening with Sancho.
I know what he's talking about, and John will be able to back me up on this. When we were linked with Sancho, I got absolutely castigated, Barry and Dan. We don't need Sancho. I know he's been all right, but I got accused of knowing nothing about football. Right, and nothing about anything. You don't know what you're talking about. You haven't got a clue about football. And I'm never a told you so type of bloke. I just aren't. But here we are, and it's just he was never going to fit in with us. He's just never going to fit in with our style of play. And you'll remember that. Do you remember it, John? When I got absolutely got castigated for it. And I don't like being right because it's one of, certainly with players, because it's not fair. If you're right about a player, it doesn't mean you necessarily know football. It just means that, the player himself just can't get to grips with pulling on the famous red shirt. And it's happened so many times. And there's absolutely no doubt about the quality that Sancho's got as a footballer. For some reason, he's got this mental block that when he steps over the line for Manchester United, he cannot deliver. And I think he needs to go back to maybe Dortmund, or he needs to go, because this kid, bless him, he's got very, very a precocious talent, but he's almost going to pull himself into the abyss. It's starting to pull him now, and he's going to become a Ravel Morrison, a player with so much promise and delivered very little. And he's got so much promise, he's delivering very little. Now, he's probably got a season to sort himself out, or he's gone. And I feel for the guy, really, because as much as I saw it coming, and I did see it coming, and John will back me up on that, I did see it coming, and so will Connor. I don't like the fact that I'm right on this occasion. I really don't.
Think Ten Hag is the person who could perhaps draw it out of him?
I think Ten Hag has changed so many players in our. I mean, people say, look what Ten Hag's done to Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I reference John because me and John have been doing shows for years now, and John knows what I think of Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I knew there was never an issue with him, but he has changed the way that Rashford's reapproached football. Yeah, okay, to where he is today. He has changed Harry Maguire's approach to the game. If you watch Maguire now, he's a lot more reserved. He's changed, David De Gea's approach to the game again. Although he's having a rough time again, he's having a real problem at the minute, De Gea. But he's changed him, and I think he could get around Sancho and do something with him, but I don't think he believes he can, and I don't think he believes he can do it with Martial. I mean, look, guys, I could be wrong. But I was right about Sancho, wasn't I, John? Unfortunately.
Yeah, right. I think it will be that way at the moment, and I am beginning to question. I mean, anyone can have an average first season, can't they? There have been players who've been born in the first season and later on become, good players, and that. So for me, I think it's really. I mean, some would even argue Anthony, don't they? And that. I think Ten Hag knows Anthony, though. He wouldn't have spent that money if he didn't see something in him. So for me, while I wouldn't say Anthony's had a terrible season, I think he's our joint second top scorer, isn't it? So it's not been terrible by any means, but he does need to improve his game and that. But ultimately, it's what you will say, Stu. A manager can only do so much down to the player themselves, isn't it? So it's kind of like you have the mentality.
You talk about Anthony on the right, but is it really, in the grand scheme of things, that different to Rashford on the left? Insofar as both would prefer, given the option, to cut in and use the opposite foot. Anthony on the left, even though he's on the right, and Rashford on the right, even though he's on the left. They are their preferred shooting boots. Don't get me wrong.
A bit more to it. There's a bit more to it. But there's a slightly bit more to it, Barry, because Dan and John, but both know this because me and Dan were talking about this on Tuesdays. It happens, and that's your relationship with your fullback.
Yes.
As good as you are at this and the attacking third, you need to be equally as good in your defensive third. And the combination of Anthony and the combination of Wan-Bissaka has proven to be solid, absolutely solid. Not so much the combination of Shaw or Malacia and Rashford, because Rashford, he doesn't tend to do as much in the final third as what Anthony does in the final third, but he gives Wan-Bissaka that real support. So as good as you are in your final third, you have to have this. And this is why the likes of bringing Wan-Bissaka back in has been really important to us. Although most of us think that Dalot's still injured. I know I do. I think he is injured. But actually, as Mickey's beat me to it, I was about to say this. He's quite a moldable player still, and going really back on what John was saying, he can mould Anthony into his preferred player. Now, does that mean by Ten Hag pushing Sancho in as a 10 a couple of times, he sees Sancho as a better 10? If that's the case, Palestra is a better 10 option for me than Sancho right now. I agree with the scene. Got to give him the benefit of the doubt again, but you're playing elite football, aren't you? And it's a tricky one. I feel for the kid, really. I do.
I think with Sancho, because there was a report I heard a couple of weeks ago, I think he is doing a lot more work with Benny McCarthy on the training pitch as well. So I think he's clearly, I think he's trying to, do something about it, and that, whether it'll come through, it doesn't always happen straight away. But I do agree with people. He won't be sold in the summer, I don't think. But I think he's going to have to improve drastically towards the end of this season, the start of next season, for me. And hopefully will come good. But I think there's a big question mark over him at this moment.
I had a really similar opinion to Stu when we signed him, and I got pelters for it as well. And it was just the opinion of the size of his contract and the fee we was paying in relation to what he's actually achieved in the game at a very young age. It came at him really fast, and I just never saw the value in terms of outlay and wages for him. And the type of football they play at Dortmund's not exactly the same as what's played at United. There's a lot more space in German football going forward. It's like a basketball game every game. And it's not like that. It's a bit more tactical in England. I do think Ten Hag will give him a chance. I think he'll probably give him another season, maybe in the 10, because funds are depending who comes in or whatever, they're not going to be unlimited. And honestly, the money spent on Sancho, you're not going to get back at the minute. You need him to kick on a little bit. Yeah. So I think he'll give him a chance. In regards to like Anthony, I've said it on the show quite a few times. I used to watch him and think goals and assists. What does he do? And I've started watching it more. How often he gets the ball back, covering runs, pestering, helping the right back, as long as he's got the good connection. I think Anthony in particular is going to come really good once Ten Hag can get the players up the pitch a little bit more, and there's a smaller gap, and he can just mould him to what he wants. And to be fair, you look at the difference between us not winning a trophy and winning a trophy, and that's Anthony and Casemiro. So the signings have been good so far. Yeah. But I've still got hope for Sancho to come good. But I do think it will be in a 10, not on the wing.
Interesting. I've seen Sancho playing in the 10.
John
boy, old
Tiger.
Sorry. Host, that's outrageous behaviour. I sit here quietly and I finally put an opinion across and I get 13. Just going to say, I don't think I really see Sancho in the 10 slot. I've not seen him perform too well though. I do prefer him on the left, but again, if you're going to put Rashford on the left, where do you put a Sancho? John, did you have something to say on the matter?
I was just saying about Anthony, where he does have to improve in that, but he did get the crucial winner against Barcelona, and he did also get the crucial second goal against Real Betis. So it's like
winning goal against Arsenal. He has come up with a few winning goals here as well.
So he has got a few important goals. So that's why I think for him, he's to the one where it's like, I expect more from him, but I do think we'll get more from him. But he didn't have a pre-season with us either. You got to factor that in as well. So for me, maybe a pre-season with Ten Hag. Hopefully we'll see a big improvement in next season, hopefully.
I think he's been very good. So just to a few of these comments on some of the things that we've been mentioning. Ten Hag is elite. He's done it with Ajax already, Mickey says, and he's instilling the same principles at United. Paul Greaves lays down the gauntlet and says, name that elite manager that would take over Man U winners. Connor's still talking about that Eric chap, about what a trajectory that was from Stoke to Munich.
Via Paris.
Paris, don't forget it. Yeah.
Best
yeah,
agent in
and
Spain.
also if there was a show coming on about this, the whole Sancho and the front line and everything there. So Man U winners. Man U winners there saying, in my opinion, Anthony's an expensive mistake. He'll not make it. Sancho will come right. There's a dynamism. Anthony, not Sancho, is the real worry. So we shall see whether you're right or not. Mickey thinks Pellistri is going to be crucial for us over this season, which again could be the truth. Paul thinks Eric Ten Hag says that Anthony's a work in progress, that he will become world class as he matures, but as we've already decided, we won't know that until after his career is over. And Man U winners again. Anthony's costing us 1 goal in 30 attempts. Pellistri and others way better. Killed our attacks and wasted so many chances. I've got
1 goal against Barcelona, 1 goal against Betis, 1 goal against Arsenal.
Is he back or has he disappeared?
I think he's dropped. Bless him.
Oh dear.
Well, no, I wouldn't agree with that. I think Anthony's is. If it's just about changing perspective how you watch him. You can't expect him to sort of settle the game all by, like Rashford does that all by himself. Anthony's not that kind of player. He's there for stability more so than goals and assists. Honestly, I was hammering Anthony at the start of this season. I was absolutely hammering him because of what he was doing. I was just like, oh, what does he bring? And then it wasn't. One of my friends said, change the way you watch him. Watch his tracking back. He's taking coming to the midfield to take the ball off people. And it was an eye opener when I watched the next game because he'd tracked all the way back to right back. He'd covered, I think it was Dallow at the time. It was brilliant, to be fair. So yeah, I think maybe try watching just the way he plays a bit different, even though I don't think he's going to play now.
I think with Anthony, he's still young, and we forget that. And you're coming from a relatively easy league, aren't you? In Holland. A little bit like what we're saying about Sancho, really. It's a bit of an easy league. And I kind of think with Anthony, he frustrates me occasionally. If I was a centre forward, I'd be frustrated with Rashford as well, quite frankly, because the ball never comes in from either of them. But he should be better with his ability on the ball. He should be better at crossing. He should be a bit more dynamic in terms of his. Oh God! I thought we wanted some new football.
I know. I do apologise, Barry.
Choupo-Moting. I mean, come on. And
I was joking, obviously.
And I would like to see him. I would like to see him get more crosses into the box, be a bit more dynamic that way, which he isn't. But he will. I think he'll come good.
Yeah, there's definite room for improvement there.
I think ultimately it comes down to the balance argument. That is that he's the only left-footed winger we have as well.
Correct.
Oh, there we go.
The host is back.
You winners just gave me a little taste of your own medicine there.
Barry's got to give big away.
Yeah.
Right, there you go. I'll hop back in the comments and annoy Stu.
Well played. So I don't know whereabouts you were, but either way, I wanted to finish with your players of the match for the Betis game. So I don't know if he's asked you that, has he?
No, we kind of let us speak, really.
Well, to be fair, you guys did really well. So who would it be? Player of the match for the game against Betis?
I'm giving it Pellistri, and I'll tell you why I'm giving it Pellistri. I'm giving it to him because I thought he had a solid game for his European debut, so to speak, with us. I thought it was a really mature performance, so he gets it for me. I know most people will say, well, Rashford's goal or Leacher again was superb, which he was. I thought Maguire was decent. I'll be honest with you. Malacia. It's great performances. You got to give that kid a lot of credit. That was a mature performance for me. So for me, it was Pellistri. A very, very straightforward one for me, Baz.
Jan and Dan.
Jandon. So you two are called Jandon from now on, then, are you?
Jandon Sancho. Oh dear God!
It's getting worse.
Dan, save me.
So I'd probably go De Gea on that one. To be honest, I thought it's the best game I've seen De Gea De Gea having a while. He commanded his box well. He made important saves when we needed him to make important saves. There was even points he was coming and claiming crosses. So that, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with Palestri either, but I think De Gea for me, best game in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
Well, I might be a bit controversial. Some people, I thought Maguire had a good game. I thought
Legend,
Maguire
John.
had a good game. I know there was a chance early on where we was maybe a little bit flat-footed, but I thought he came forward and progressed the ball well, and I think over it was a comfortable. I didn't think he had too much. So I thought Martinez was also very good with that. So, but for me, yeah, he does get a lot of stick a lot of the time. But Maguire did impress me last night, so I'll give a vote to him.
Good job. And I think that seems fair enough. And yeah, enjoyed my brief camo there. I think you mean cameo. Camo is when you're not seen at all. Which, to be fair, you weren't. It was just your voice. But yeah, feel free. Jump in anytime you like, Connor. I mean, it's your show at the end of the day. I can't really stop you, can I? So there we go. Brilliant. Thank you so much. We had a brilliant review there. We do just have a brief look at the weekend, which is, of course, Fulham. The last game we played against them, we won 2-1. Alejandro Garnacho scoring in the 93rd minute to spare our blushes. How are we feeling about this weekend? Are we thinking it's going to be another good weekend where we get ourselves through? Fulham have been a bit of a tricky side for some teams, and certainly punching probably above their weight so far this season. There's no Garnacho. We don't think he's got to have a test before we can know for sure that we can promise him. So what are we thinking? We'll start off with Dan and then work our way around.
I think it's going to be a really tough game. I think Silva should be up for Manager of the Year. Fulham have been fantastic this year. They've been so good. I've managed to catch a few of the games as well, and the football they're playing is not half bad either. We spoke about it on the last show. It's going to be the midfield. Have we got enough to have any control in midfield? Because if not, it's going to be straight counter-attacking football that we're going to have to do. So it'll be interesting to see how he lines up in midfield. I think Old Trafford, we should have enough, but it is going to be a really, really tough game. I'm hoping Maguire starts this game, because I feel like if Mitrovic starts, we probably need that little bit more physicality. But it'll be interesting. I think he's definitely going to revert to sort what we used to. I think he might go Sabitzer Fred midfield, because we didn't see McTominay the other night, I don't think. Can't remember seeing him. So I don't know whether he's fully fit or not. But I think it's just that midfield. How are they going to get around that? I genuinely don't know. But Fulham are no joke this season. They're a really, really good footballing team. I think I was reading that Willian might be injured, which would be a blessing, because he went to Brazil, put on loads of weight, and then's come back a class footballer again somehow. Don't know how that's happened, but it's been fantastic.
Yeah, I agree with Dan actually on this one. If it wasn't for the FA Cup, which I absolutely love, I love the FA Cup. And if it was any other competition, I wouldn't be too bothered. But I love the FA Cup. But I think he's got to go as close to last night's team, obviously without Casemiro, obviously, because he's suspended, as he can. I agree with Dan. If we go into this game lightly, we're gonna get beat. I think he's right about Silva. I think if Silva doesn't end up at Spurs or somewhere else in the new season, I'll be amazed. I think he was ridiculed, Silva, a few years ago.
Was it Hull City?
And Everton. Yeah, Watford and Everton absolutely ridiculed. People were saying he was finished, but he's come back and he's a completely different guy, and he really has got these guys motoring. I think Dan's right. If Mitrovic plays, you're going to need somebody of Maguire's stature to bully Mitrovic back, because he's an absolute animal. And he's right about Willian as well. I mean, crikey, who'd have thought Willian could come back and actually start playing football again at a high level? He's been great. I love watching Fulham as well. I think they're great to watch. But I do fancy us to get by, and I think we'll beat them 2-0 actually. But he's going to have to play something close as that team. Sabitzer, 100% has to play. And I think probably Fred comes in And Palestri, I think, keeps his place. I do.
Yeah, I agree with the comments. And it's also worth mentioning Andres Pereira as well.
Do you know who we forgot as
Oh,
well?
sorry, I was about to say
Paulinho.
Pereira.
Yeah,
Paulinho.
he started every league game for Fulham, and obviously wasn't the best player for United, but it's pleasing that he's found his level and he's doing well for a very good team in Fulham. And I do agree. I think Paulinho, but he's missed the last couple of games, but I think he might be coming back.
He's back.
Yeah, he is back.
He is. And obviously, I think it's Solomon who's scored a few lately as well. So I think you can't rest on your laurels now. But that being said, I would expect us to get a result even with Casemiro missing that. I do agree, like maybe a 2-1 or something to see us hopefully through to the semi-finals, and then and then obviously we can have a bit of a break for a couple of weeks, can't we?
And as Stu's already said, that's a big thing for us all at the moment. It's just breaking this cycle of games every 3 or 4 days.
I think also because like even people aren't the biggest fans of international breaks. Now I'm not. And every person I speak to says, I'm kind of glad we're having a bit of a break now, just to refresh our own minds and everything.
The thing is, Rashford was looking maybe a bit tired, and he'll be in both of those games probably because it's Italy and Ukraine, like so they are Euro qualifiers. But yeah, I think we will all be looking forward to a little bit of break for the lads. John's gone 2-1, or Jan, as we're now calling him. Stu has managed to go with 2-0. So, Don, what's your thoughts? What's your score going to be?
I'm going to go for a 2-1 as well.
2-1 as well. So we're still thinking very, very tight.
Oh, yeah, 100% tight, yeah.
Although it's interesting, all our rounds we've won so far, we've won 3-1.
Change my mind. I'm going to go 3-1.
Go on.
I didn't know that.
Gone 3-1.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Everton, Reading, and West Ham were all 3-1, weren't they?
I can sort of see it being 2-1 to us towards the end, and Fulham just really pushing and pressing to try and get the equaliser. And then us just doing what we do, a little bit of a counter attack, get the third goal in the last few minutes. I'd quite like that. Connor's just.
Oh dear. Where did he put that then?
9:44 p.m. and it is 9:44 p.m. So we'll never be able to prove it. You're going to need VAR, Connor. Yeah. So you go back on the VAR, prove that it was on there.
Yeah.
Before you said it. So there we go, boys. Like I say, superb work. I just wanted to throw out a little shout out to Harry Maguire as well, because you were quite right. And actually, I listened to his interview he gave after the game against Real Betis, and there was just a comment that he said that I sort of wanted to end the show with, because I think Harry Maguire gets a bad rap every single time he plays from a vast section of the United fan base. But what I loved about him was how he said, it's my job as captain, whether I'm playing or whether I'm not, to try and help drive this football club forward. And I just wanted to give kudos to the guy, because I think to have that level of attitude when you're the captain who's been brought in for £80 million and you're having all of this stuff going on, to be brought in, to be dropped by your manager and to be told you're the club captain, and to still have that level of professionalism, I think it speaks volumes about the bloke. So I just really wanted to note that, because I think what a fantastic example that is, that even if things aren't going your way, you don't always have to throw your toys out the pram. Do we, Ronnie? So there we go. Brilliant. Listen, you three have been absolutely brilliant. I can barely believe we've gone on for 90 minutes. It's been almost a whole football match just here.
Yeah.
We could have gone on longer because you guys are superb. Thank you once again. As I said, it's been a cracking evening. We're all looking forward to the weekend. It's a full day of FA Cup action on Sunday, because obviously we have the men facing Fulham and the women will be away at Lewis with an opportunity to get through to the semi-final as well. There'll be lots of reaction and all of that jazz on Monday for the women's channel against Lewis. Not quite sure if there's going to be anything as yet for the Fulham game. We will keep you updated on social media, but if not, Connor will definitely be back on Tuesday with another one of his forgettable shows, as Stu seems to know there. That's his words, not mine. So there we go. But brilliant. Cheers, guys. It's been an absolute delight, and I'm sure that we'll be back some point next week. Take care.